wiped her hands on her apron, and glanced around the busy space station. The air was thick with the smell of roasted alien beans, sizzling protein skewers, and recycled oxygen that had seen better days. The hum of starships docking outside the observation window added a constant vibration beneath her feet. For most people, this place was just a pit stop, a brief pause on their long journeys through the galaxy. For it was home, the only home she had ever known. She moved with practiced ease, balancing a tray full of steaming drinks and nutrient bars, weaving through tables filled with merchants, traders, and from dozens of worlds. Some of them sneered at her because she was just a waitress. Others ignored her entirely, but had learned long ago not to take it personally. She smiled politely, answered questions politely, and kept her dreams carefully hidden behind her bright brown eyes. Her life was simple but exhausting. Long shifts, endless demands, and tips that barely covered her rent in the cramped capsule she called an apartment. She often wondered what her life could have been if her mother had survived, if she had a family who cared about her. Those questions were dangerous, though, and usually shoved them deep down, where they wouldn't distract her from the tasks at hand. This morning, though, was unusually busy. News had spread that a high-profile guest was arriving, a billionaire from the core systems, known across several star sectors for his vast fleet of interstellar freighters and his cold, arrogant demeanor. Even in the galaxy's bustling economy, he was untouchable, a man whose decisions could make or break entire worlds. Most of the staff whispered nervously, imagining how difficult it would be to serve someone who demanded perfection. Barely gave it a thought. She had dealt with her fair share of demanding clients, but when the tall figure entered, everything about him radiated power. His suit was perfectly tailored from a material that shimmered subtly in artificial light, his eyes sharp and calculating, scanning the room as though nothing escaped his notice. He moved like a predator, slow, deliberate, confident. "Table for one," he said, his voice calm but edged with authority. It was a voice that demanded attention without asking. Approached him, her heart thumping quietly in her chest. "Right this way, sir," she said, forcing her smile to be warmer than it felt. She led him to the best table near the observation window, giving him a clear view of the bustling spaceport outside. He didn't speak as he sat, only observing, and felt a strange prickling at the back of her neck, like he somehow knew more about her than he should. "Drink?" she asked, holding the menu. He didn't look at her immediately, but finally his gaze fixed on her, cold and assessing. "Water, and bring something strong, something that makes time matter less." Frowned slightly but nodded, walking back toward the counter. Something about him unsettled her, but not in the usual way that difficult customers did. There was a weight to him, a presence that seemed almost familiar. She shook her head and focused on the orders piling up. Still, she couldn't stop sneaking glances toward the table. The man, as she had heard through whispers, was scanning the quietly, his sharp eyes missing nothing. Caught herself wondering what made someone like him come all the way out here to the edge of the galaxy just for a stop. As she carried his drinks, she didn't realize that her life was about to change forever. The arrogant billionaire sitting at that table wasn't just another customer. Somehow, in ways she couldn't yet understand, he was connected to the missing pieces of her past, the ones she had buried so carefully in her heart. And for the first time in a long while, felt a spark of curiosity, mixed with fear, about what the universe might have in store for her. There was buzzing with the usual morning chaos when lifted the crystal-clear glass to his lips. His eyes, dark and calculating, scanned the room again, as if measuring every detail and every person. Approached cautiously, balancing the tray with a polite smile she had perfected over countless shifts. "Here's your water, sir," she said softly, placing the glass on the table. She added the strong drink in a sleek metallic cup, carefully brewed to the exact specifications they used for high-end clientele. He didn't smile, he didn't speak at first. He merely studied her as though trying to figure out what she was. Felt a shiver run down her spine under his gaze, but she refused to step back. There was something in her chest, a stubborn spark, that told her she didn't need to bow to him, no matter who he was. "You seem composed," he said finally, his voice smooth but with a slight edge. "Most people here, they'd tremble or fumble. You don't." Tilted her head, trying to hide the hint of pride that rose despite herself. "I've seen a lot," she said simply. "People come and go. I've learned to stay steady." His lips curved ever so slightly, almost like a smirk. "Steady? Interesting word. Most people think they're steady until they meet someone like me." Her hands tightened slightly on the tray. There was arrogance in his words, but she refused to let it push her down. "I think most people just have to survive," she replied evenly. Steady is part of surviving. He studied her again, and this time there was a flicker of something else. Curiosity, maybe even respect. For a billionaire accustomed to people bending under his presence, his quiet confidence was like a fresh wind. It made him pause. "You're different from the others," he said almost to himself. "I like that." Felt a mixture of relief and unease. Different could mean a lot of things, some good, some bad. "I try to be myself," she said cautiously. "Not always easy, but it works." For a moment, silence stretched between them, broken only by the distant hum of starships docking outside. Then leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. "Do you ever wonder what your life could be beyond this place?" Blinked, caught off guard. It was a strange question coming from someone so imposing. She hesitated, then said softly, "Every day. But dreams don't pay for rent or food, they just sit there." He nodded slowly, as if considering her answer carefully. There was something in his gaze, an intensity that made her feel both exposed and understood. It was unsettling, but she couldn't look away. "Maybe," he said finally, "some dreams are waiting for the right moment and the right person to notice them." Frowned slightly, not sure what he meant, but before she could ask, the comm system beeped urgently. A warning flashed across the screen. A small fleet of rogue ships was approaching the station, suspected pirates. Panic rippled through the staff and patrons. Didn't flinch, he stood, his presence suddenly commanding the entire room. "Stay calm," he said sharply. His voice carried authority, and surprisingly the chaos slowed around him. He added, looking directly at her, "I may need your help." Her heart skipped. Help him? Why her? She had no idea what kind of danger was coming, but something deep inside told her this moment would change everything. As the first alarms echoed through the station, felt an unusual mixture of fear and excitement. For the first time, she realized that this arrogant billionaire wasn't just another customer. Something about him, his presence, his strength, and maybe something else she couldn't yet name, was about to pull her life into a direction she could never have imagined. And in the back of her mind, a quiet whisper of curiosity began to grow. Who was this man, really? And why did it feel like she had known him her whole life? The alarms blared throughout the space station, throwing the usually calm into chaos. Patrons scrambled toward exits, staff shouted instructions, and the distant hum of approaching ships grew louder. Hands shook slightly as she grabbed it to monitor the alert system, but she forced herself to stay calm. She had survived tight spots before, but nothing had ever felt like this. So close, so dangerous, yet strangely exhilarating. Moved through the room like a shadow, unshaken by the panic around him. His eyes were sharp, calculating, scanning every corner, every person. Watched him, both frustrated and impressed. He was arrogant, yes, but he commanded respect naturally, something she had never seen before in any human or alien she had met. He called, his voice cutting through the chaos. It was calm, firm, yet carried an urgency that made her heart race. "Help me secure the observation deck. We need a clear view of incoming ships." Her stomach tightened. Why him, why her? And yet a part of her felt a strange trust, as if he knew she could handle it. "Right," she said, grabbing a portable security scanner and following him. As they reached the observation deck, the tension between them grew. Didn't speak much, only pointed to incoming threats on the holographic display. But his gaze kept flicking to her, assessing, judging, almost like he was trying to see something deeper within her. Felt a shiver run down her spine. There was something unsettling about the way he looked at her, as if he already knew pieces of her she hadn't discovered herself. "You handle pressure well," finally said, his voice softer now, almost contemplative. "Most people freeze, you adapt." Swallowed, unsure whether to feel proud or insulted. "I've had practice," she said, forcing a small smile, though her hands were still trembling. "Life doesn't wait for anyone to be ready." For a moment they both stared at the holographic map, side by side, their shoulders almost touching. The air felt electric, not just from the alarms, but from a strange connection neither of them could explain. His expression softened slightly, a flicker of something human, maybe admiration, maybe concern. Chest tightened, a mixture of fear and curiosity swirling inside her. Suddenly, one of the incoming ships fired a warning shot. The blast shook the observation deck, sending a small spray of sparks across the floor. Stumbled but didn't fall. His hand brushed hers instinctively, steadying her. The brief contact sent an unexpected jolt through her body. Her heart pounded faster, but she couldn't let herself get distracted. Lives depended on focus now, not feelings. "Ready the station defenses," ordered, snapping her back to reality. I'll handle the fleet outside. As they worked, noticed small, odd details about him. His careful attention to detail, the way he analyzed threats with precision, the way he seemed familiar. Not just familiar in appearance, but in gestures, expressions, and instincts. Something deep inside her stirred, a memory she couldn't place, a connection she couldn't explain. Meanwhile, was silently observing her every move. Her courage, quick thinking, and resilience impressed him in a way he hadn't expected. He had spent his life commanding fleets and making impossible decisions, yet this simple waitress, she unnerved him. Not because she was dangerous, but because she reminded him of something he had lost, or maybe someone he had left behind. The danger passed as quickly as it had arrived. The rogue ships retreated after realizing the station's defenses were prepared. Alarms faded, leaving an uneasy quiet behind. Leaned against the observation deck wall, trying to calm her racing heart. Stood beside her, silent for a moment, his sharp eyes softened by something she couldn't name. "You handled yourself well," he said finally. "Better than most people I've trained." Blinked, caught off guard. "Thanks, I guess." Her voice was small, unsure of how to respond to praise from someone so intimidating. His gaze lingered on her, and for a brief moment felt like he wasn't the arrogant billionaire everyone whispered about. He was human, flawed, maybe even connected to her in ways she didn't yet understand. As she returned to her tasks, a quiet thought echoed in her mind. This man, this impossible stranger, might change her life forever. And whether she wanted it or not, she could feel that the universe had only just begun pulling them together. After the chaos had subsided, the space station slowly returned to its usual rhythm. Patrons whispered about the sudden pirate threat. Staff tried to clean up the scattered trays and equipment, and the hum of arriving ships returned to a steady background noise. Returned to her section of still feeling the adrenaline coursing through her veins. Yet, a strange curiosity lingered in her mind about the billionaire who had dominated her morning and unsettled her with a single glance. While wiping tables, his eyes fell on a small, hidden compartment beneath the counter, an old habit from her mother's days running Inside, she found a worn data crystal she had discovered months ago but never had the courage to open. Her mother had left it with a note, "For the day you need to know the truth." With trembling hands, activated the crystal. Holographic images and fragmented messages flickered to life. Words she didn't fully understand at first began to piece together a story of her mother's past, a story that involved powerful corporations, interstellar negotiations, and someone named. Her heart skipped. Could it be the arrogant billionaire who had unsettled her morning? As the holograms shifted, she noticed a small message addressed directly to her. "One day you will understand why I had to stay away. Trust only those who prove themselves." Her chest tightened. Questions she had buried for years about her mother, her father, and her place in the universe began to surface. Meanwhile, returned to under the pretense of checking on the station's recovery. He glanced across the room, his sharp eyes noticing the brief flicker of shock and curiosity on her face. Something had changed in her demeanor. She looked different, more alert, more aware, as if she had just discovered a hidden layer of her own life. "Everything all right?" he asked, his tone careful, almost hesitant. Hesitated, unsure if she should reveal the crystal and the message she had just uncovered. Her instincts screamed to protect herself, but curiosity was stronger than caution. I found something," she admitted, her voice low. "A message from my mother." His expression softened, a flicker of something vulnerable showing through the usual mask of authority. "Your mother, she was strong," he said quietly. "I knew her long ago." His heart leaped. She had imagined this moment 1,000 times, but never like this, never with the man sitting in front of her, a man who had stirred a strange, unplaceable feeling in her chest. "You knew her?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Yes," he replied, his gaze steady. "And I've been trying to make sense of things I lost along the way. Your mother, she wanted you to know the truth when the time was right." The words hung between them, heavy with meaning, felt a mixture of fear, anger, and longing. Why had no one told her? Why had her life been so ordinary while her past held such secrets? She wanted answers, but she also feared them. Leaned forward, his presence both intimidating and strangely comforting. "There are things you don't understand yet," he said carefully, "but the moment is coming when you will." Nodded, though her mind was spinning. The puzzle pieces of her life, her mother's warnings, the mysterious data crystal, the uncanny familiarity she felt with, were starting to align. Something deep inside told her that the arrogant billionaire was not just a stranger. He was connected to her in ways that were bigger than the station, bigger than the galaxy even. As she returned the crystal to its hiding place, felt a strange mix of excitement and dread. The universe, she realized, was about to pull her into a story far beyond the ordinary life she had known. And at the center of that story was a man she didn't yet fully trust but could no longer ignore. For the first time in years, she felt that her life was about to change forever. The calm of the space station lasted only a few hours. Just as it returned to her duties, a new warning lit up the display screens. A rogue fleet was approaching, larger and more aggressive than the earlier threat. Panic spread quickly among the staff and patrons. Everyone scrambled for safety, shouting and bumping into each other, but felt her mind focus like never before. Appeared beside her, calm and commanding as always. He said, his voice steady, "We need to get to the engineering deck. The station's defenses won't hold for long." Her heart skipped, but she nodded. She didn't understand why he trusted her so much, but instinct told her she had no choice but to follow. Together, they navigated the corridors, ducking under falling debris and avoiding panicked travelers. His usual fear was tempered by a strange confidence. Somehow, when was near, danger didn't feel as paralyzing. In the engineering deck, the station's main console blinked red, signaling critical damage in multiple sectors. Grabbed and started following precise instructions. Seal the pressure doors to Sector 7, reroute power to the shield generators, and help me stabilize the auxiliary reactors, he barked, his tone sharp but patient. Worked quickly, following the instructions even as alarms blared and the station shook. Sparks flew, and a warning siren sounded as a nearby blast rocked the deck. She almost lost her balance, but's hand shot out instinctively, gripping her wrist to steady her. The contact sent an unexpected jolt through her. Her pulse raced, but she forced herself to focus. "You're fast and smart," said briefly, almost as if surprised by her abilities. "Most people can't keep up in chaos." She gave a small, nervous smile. "I've had practice. Surviving is part of life." The rogue fleet's attack intensified. Blasts rocked the station's outer hull and felt the vibration through her feet. She looked at, noticing how his calm demeanor masked the intense focus in his eyes. Every movement was deliberate, every command precise. Despite his arrogance, there was a human side he rarely showed, a side that cared for others' lives, even strangers like her. Together, they rerouted power, sealed critical doors, and stabilized sections of the station. His heart pounded, her hands slick with sweat, yet she felt alive in a way she never had before. Occasionally checked on her, his gaze lingering longer than necessary. There was something about her, something he couldn't name, that made him feel responsible, almost protective, in a way he hadn't felt for years. Hours seemed to pass in minutes. Finally, the rogue fleet, realizing the station was prepared, retreated. The alarms ceased, leaving an eerie silence in their wake. Leaned against a console, exhausted but exhilarated. Stood nearby, surveying the damage, his expression unreadable. "You did well," he said finally, his voice softer than before. "Better than most people I've trusted with something like this." Blinked, unsure how to respond. She had never received praise like that, especially not from someone like him. "Thanks, I guess," she murmured, feeling a mix of pride and disbelief. For a long moment they stood side by side, both breathing heavily. The danger had passed, but something unspoken had shifted between them. Felt it, a connection, a spark, something deeper than fear or gratitude. And he felt it too, though he refused to admit what it meant. Finally he spoke, his voice quiet but firm. "You're not like anyone I've ever met. There's more to you than you know, and more to me than I usually show." Her heart skipped again. There was truth in his words and an unspoken promise. Something in the universe had brought them together for a reason. Didn't yet understand what it was, but she could feel it deep in her bones. And in that moment, amid the smoke and flickering lights of the damaged station, she realized one thing clearly. Her life was about to change forever, and she was ready, even if she didn't yet know how. The station's alarms were finally silenced, leaving only the soft hum of machinery and the distant chatter of crew members repairing the damage. Leaned against a console, her chest still heaving, her hands trembling slightly from adrenaline. The danger had passed, but a new tension lingered between her, and a tension that neither of them could ignore. Approached slowly, his usual confident stride tempered by a rare hesitation. He said, his voice quieter than usual, "There's something I need to tell you, something important." Her heart skipped a beat. She had expected danger, challenges, perhaps even secrets about her mother, but the weight in his tone made her pause. "What is it?" she asked, her voice cautious. He took a deep breath and looked her directly in the eyes, as if measuring her reaction. "I am your father," he said finally, his words deliberate and steady. Froze, her mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. Her mind raced, trying to process the impossible. The arrogant billionaire, the man who had unsettled her with a single glance, was her father. The thought was shocking, confusing, and somehow terrifying. You're my father," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Yes," he replied, his expression softening. "I had to stay away for your safety. Circumstances, your mother. It wasn't safe for me to be part of your life back then. I know it doesn't make up for my absence, but I need you to know the truth now." Felt a flood of emotions, anger, disbelief, longing, and a strange relief. All the unanswered questions about her past, all the pieces of her life that didn't fit, suddenly made sense. She wanted to scream at him for leaving, to demand answers, to push him away. But another part of her, the part that had longed for a family she never had, trembled with hope. "Why now?" she asked finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why tell me now?" Looked down, his usually unshakable demeanor faltering. "Because I see you. I see who you are, strong, brave, capable, and I realize you deserve to know who I am. You deserve the truth, and I need to be part of your life now if you'll let me." Her eyes filled with tears she hadn't realized she was holding back. She wanted to run, to push him away, but she also wanted to reach out, to bridge the gap years of absence had created. Slowly, cautiously, she took a step closer. I don't know if I can just forgive you," she said honestly. "You don't have to forgive me," he replied gently. "I just want the chance to be your father however you let me, that's all I ask." For the first time, studied him not as a billionaire, not as a stranger, but as the man who had unknowingly shaped her life. There was a vulnerability in him now, a rare human side beneath the arrogance and power, and it drew her in despite her fear. I need time," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "I need to understand this." Nodded, his gaze never leaving hers. "Take all the time you need. I'll be here always." A quiet moment passed between them, filled with unspoken words and emotions too complex to name. The chaos of the station outside seemed distant, irrelevant. For the first time, felt the possibility of connection, a bond she had only dreamed of, beginning to form. She realized in that moment that her life had changed forever. The arrogant billionaire she had first met was no longer just a stranger or a figure of intimidation. He was her father, a man she could now choose to know, and the universe had given her the chance to rewrite her story. And somewhere deep inside, she felt a spark of hope, a fragile yet powerful hope, that maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of a new life she had been waiting for all along. The space station had returned to its normal rhythm, but for nothing would ever feel ordinary again. The revelation about her father hung over her like a new sun rising, warm, blinding, and impossible to ignore. She had spent her entire life longing for answers, for family, and now, standing beside the man who had unknowingly shaped her destiny, those long-held questions were finally beginning to be answered. Walked beside her through the bustling corridors, his hand hovering near hers, not quite touching, but close enough to remind her of the bond they were slowly forming. He had changed in the past few days, too. The arrogance that had first unnerved her had softened into something human, something approachable. Yet beneath that humanity was the same forceful, commanding presence that could make star systems tremble with a single decision. She couldn't help but feel a mixture of awe, curiosity, and something deeper, an unspoken connection that neither of them had expected. "You handled yourself remarkably," said softly, breaking the comfortable silence. "Not just during the attack, but today in general. You're extraordinary." She felt her cheeks flush. Praise from him still carried weight even now. I did what I had to," she replied quietly, trying to sound casual. Yet inside, her heart swelled. For the first time, someone she had longed to know, not just anyone but her father, was noticing her, appreciating her, respecting her. They stopped at the observation deck, gazing out at the stars beyond the station. Ships traveled like fireflies against the dark expanse, and distant planets glimmered softly in the cosmic distance. Felt a calm she hadn't felt in years, as though the universe itself was giving her a moment to breathe and understand the path ahead. "I don't know how to do this," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "To have a father now, to trust someone who wasn't there before." His gaze softened. "You don't have to do anything right away. All I want is to be here, to try, and to give you the choice to let me in. That's all I can ask." Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. The anger she had carried for years, the longing, the confusion, was still there, but it mingled now with hope. For the first time, she felt that maybe she could let someone into her life without fear, without hesitation. Just then, a young technician approached with a report about the station's repairs, listened carefully, then turned back to her. "The universe is vast and dangerous," he said quietly, almost to himself. "But it can also be full of opportunity. We have a lot to explore together if you'll let me." Looked at him, her heart racing with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. The adventures, the challenges, the unknown, they no longer felt frightening. They felt possible. And for the first time, she realized that family, love, and courage could exist even in the far reaches of space. I want that," she said finally, her voice steady, though emotion shimmered beneath the surface. "I want to try with you." His eyes softened further, and for the first time, his usual mask of arrogance was gone completely. He extended his hand to her, not as a billionaire commanding authority, but as a father offering trust. She took it, and in that simple gesture, a bridge was formed over years of absence, over questions and doubts, over the silent loneliness they had both carried. As they stood together, gazing at the stars, felt a surge of possibility. The universe was vast and unpredictable, but for the first time, she knew she wasn't facing it alone. She had a father she had never expected, a man who could be her guide, her protector, and perhaps even her friend. And in that moment, knew her life had truly begun, not just as a waitress on a distant space station, but as a young woman with a family, a future, and the courage to face the galaxy itself. The stars outside seemed to shine a little brighter, reflecting the spark of a new beginning, a bond forged not by chance, but by fate, and a universe ready to watch them grow together.